If they have emails showing that I have committed fraud, you should get those. Why aren't they putting them out there? Right now, they are hiding behind a veil of innuendo. They're protecting the biggest fraudster in the White House.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz lashing out at the president and Republicans one day after ending his campaign for a third term. The former Democratic vice presidential nominee, this man was this close to being second in power in the United States, is now facing growing pressure over what the feds call staggering fraud that could total $9 billion of your taxpayer dollars. Senior correspondent Mike Tobin reporting live from Minneapolis. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Martha. Bitter and impassioned, the governor of Minnesota took questions for the first time since he announced that he was going to abandon his bid for re-election. Repeatedly, Governor Walz said that the buck stops with him, but then in the next breath, he would blame Republicans and President Trump. The one thing he was resolute about is that he will not resign before this term is over.
I'm not going anywhere. And you can make all your requests for me to resign over my dead body. Will that happen? I will fight this thing till the very end to make this state better. And the question that I think they need to decide is when did the guy in the White House resign? When does he take accountability for what he did? Because it isn't going to happen here in terms of us shying away from making the state better.
Governor Walz complained that federal agents are flooding into Minnesota without coordinating with state or local law enforcement. 2,000 ICE agents are now on the ground in Minnesota. In fact, Secretary Kristi Noem was here as well and present when ICE agents apprehended an Ecuadorian man they say was wanted for murder overseas, sexual assault here in the United States. Now, Walz had previously been invited to come speak to the U.S. House Oversight Committee. That committee chairman, James Comer, said earlier today he's now going to be subpoenaed to come and explain how fraud ran so wild in this state. Martha, back to you.
A lot of explaining to do. Thank you very much, Mike Tobin. My next guest, writing on FoxNews.com, quote, ultimately, Walz decided to blow up his political career rather than be accused of racism by accurately addressing the broad systemic fraud rampant in Minnesota's Somali community. Fox News digital columnist David Marcus joins us now. David, good to have you with us. Explain your theory as it comes to Walz and what he was so reluctant to do when this was all emerging.
Yeah, I mean, look, Tim Walz's political career has fallen victim to his embrace of identity politics. He was introduced to us as this weird white guy whisperer who was supposed to give us permission to be able to vote for a black woman. It was obvious. It was facile. It was insulting. Right? Here's my pickup truck. I'm loading my shotgun. And it didn't appeal to white guys. It appealed to them about as much as a Labor Day sale at Bed Bath & Beyond. And then similarly, in Minnesota, it's very clear from Digital's reporting, as well as other outlets, that his administration looked the other way at rampant, widespread fraud in the Somali community because they did not want to be perceived as racist. And in fact, we had Somali organizations that were sending out letters saying, this scrutiny is racist, don't do this. And so he made that bed and you know, now he's got to lie in it because he painted the Somali community as victims. If they're victims and the taxpayers are victims, the only one left to blame is Tim Walz.
Yeah. I mean, if you're just upholding the law and you look at who's breaking the law, and then after that fact, you make a conclusion that a lot of it is coming from a community that raises questions. Why is that happening? And there's a lot of theories behind why that happened in the Somali community. But we also know that there's a lot more to this story, and we're probably going to see more of these types of stories. This is Nick Shirley, who blew the lid off part of this Minnesota fraud deal on Riley Gaines' show tomorrow. Watch this.
There's fraud all across the country right now with these daycare facilities. You have 4 kids, I have 4 kids, you watch my 4 kids, I'll watch your 4 kids, and we'll make $25,000 a pop.
That's crazy.
And a lot of people have taken advantage of that in places like Seattle, Washington, for instance. So this fraud's happening everywhere. Now, the people have given me a mandate to expose more of the fraud, so I'll be exposing more.
Yeah. You know, we all know how much money got flooded out into these communities with so little accountability, starting in COVID and continuing after that. How much more of this story do you think we're going to see out there, David?
Oh, we're going to see a lot. We're going to see it. We're seeing it in California. We're going to see it in New York with the home health aides. And I think we need to look at this in an entirely different way. This is not standard Tammany Hall patronage and kickbacks, right? We've always had that. That was meant to keep people in power. That was not meant to be a massive redistribution of wealth. What we're seeing here is a massive redistribution of wealth. When these blue states allocate billions of dollars for marginalized communities and then fail to put in place any safeguards to stop theft, that's Marxism by fraud. That's taking money from corporations, from rich people, saying we're going to send it over here, we're not going to pay any attention to what's happening to it. And we're talking about tens of billions of dollars, maybe hundreds of billions of dollars. Absolutely. So we need to start thinking about this in those terms, not just as a small story of Tammany Hall style
Absolutely.
political corruption.
And accountability and justice have to be blind. And so you can't avoid prosecuting a certain group because you think it will make you look bad, which is essentially what Tim Walz is, suggested that he was doing with the Somali community in Minnesota. Thank you very much, David. Great piece. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
So the White House tees up meetings with oil executives to boost production in Venezuela. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum with that side of the story. What can Americans expect in terms of more oil supply potentially? Next.